Roseanne Barr is speaking out, pointing to what she sees as a glaring double standard in Hollywood. She argues that she was ousted, banished even, for far less than what Jimmy Kimmel did, and yet he has been welcomed back with open arms. Naturally, she is far from pleased. Conservatives have latched on to her frustration, suggesting that the Walt Disney Company, under Bob Iger's leadership, has cultivated a biased environment where even Mickey Mouse seems to be taking sides against a significant portion of the nation. Welcome back to the channel that delivers the news before the mainstream media even has a chance to process it. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and leave a comment below. It is the perfect time to engage and beat the algorithms, so let's dive in. Roseanne, not Roseanne as the on-screen Chiron mistakenly read, has made her feelings clear regarding ABC's handling of Jimmy Kimmel's return. Reporting via News Nation, Brian Enon highlighted her criticism. She called ABC's decision a double standard, pointing out the stark contrast between her permanent cancellation in 2018 and Kimmel's brief suspension followed by reinstatement. Barr explained, "I had my life upended, no forgiveness, my work stripped away, and I was labeled a racist for eternity because of a racially misgendering incident," emphasizing that ABC's actions reflected a clear imbalance in accountability. Her own experience with ABC ended, suddenly in May 2018, when the network pulled the plug on her rebooted sitcom Roseanne following her controversial tweet about former White House advisor Valerie Jarrett. Though the show technically continued without her, Barr's absence was permanent, and the spotlight shifted to other cast and crew who carried on behind the scenes. The irony, she notes, is that her show had been ABC's highest-rated series that season before the fallout. While some reports claim her program was canceled, Barr clarifies that the show was simply reshaped, her influence erased, yet others continued in her place, quietly benefiting from her departure. After realizing that Valerie Jarrett belonged to an ethnicity she had not considered when making the joke, Roseanne Barr quickly issued a public apology. She wrote, "I apologize. I am now leaving Twitter. I apologize to Valerie Jarrett and to all Americans. I am truly sorry for making a bad joke about her politics and her looks. I should have known better. Forgive me. My joke was in bad taste." Despite this immediate apology, ABC acted swiftly, removing her from her show, and that marked the end of her mainstream Hollywood career. She lost her platform, her work, and much of the career she had built over decades. Unlike Barr, Jimmy Kimmel has not faced comparable consequences nor offered a substantive public apology. Barr's contrition was clear and personal, not a perfunctory, "I'm sorry you were offended" statement. Yet Hollywood's response was harsh and irreversible. Behind the scenes, those who knew Barr, like the late Norm Macdonald, highlighted her commitment to inclusivity, noting that she intentionally hired people of color for her writing staff and broke barriers in a male-dominated industry. She wielded remarkable influence on Roseanne, steering the show as a powerful female lead in Hollywood, a rare feat that opened doors for other female comedians. Her original series and its reboot were both massive hits, yet they were essentially erased after a single racially insensitive comment. Since leaving ABC, Barr has built a new career in alternative media, working on projects like the Comedy Hub in Austin. But she has never returned to mainstream Hollywood. Her show was stripped from her character killed off, and her family largely written out of the narrative. She has every reason to feel anger and frustration, and she does. This situation exemplifies a stark double standard, particularly when compared to other entertainers whose missteps are forgiven or overlooked. The question of whether Hollywood allows conservatives to thrive or even exist openly remains complicated. While Barr's experience is extreme, it highlights a broader debate about accountability, selective forgiveness, and ideological biases in the industry. Though each case is unique, her story underscores the unequal consequences that can follow depending on who commits the offense and their perceived place in Hollywood's hierarchy. During the height of Major Dad's popularity, there were actually plans to lean into political controversy for its next season. Because of Gerald McRaney's outspoken criticism of Bill Clinton, the writers had considered placing his Marine characters on the White House detail, essentially turning real-world tension into a storyline. The only reason it never happened had nothing to do with politics at all. CBS and Universal fought over who would foot the bill for new sets. Neither side budged, and the plan was scrapped. Back then, that kind of political edge was considered an asset. Today, it would be far more volatile. Behind the scenes, though, the culture was usually less dramatic. Most crews stayed professional, and politics rarely spilled over into workplace dynamics. The biggest conflicts were not about ideology, but about money. Actors who believed they deserved far more for their role, only to be written out or quietly removed from the show without any explanation to viewers. That was the real pattern. Not political purges, but financial disagreements. Still, Roseanne Barr's case feels different. She claims she was not only vilified but erased, her reputation ruined, her character killed off, and her career effectively ended by the same network that later forgave Jimmy Kimmel for his own controversies. The contrast is striking. Kimmel faced only a short suspension and has yet to offer any genuine apology, while Barr immediately issued a heartfelt, direct one. Her situation mirrors that of Gina Carano, another outspoken conservative woman who claims she was fired under unfair, politically motivated conditions. This raises uncomfortable questions. Is it simply politics, or is there also misogyny at work? Are outspoken conservative women treated more harshly than their male counterparts? Gina Carano has alleged sexism in her own legal battle, and Barr has hinted at the same. Some observers argue Disney has been especially quick to sideline not only conservative figures, but also women of faith, or those who deviate from the company's preferred cultural narrative. Meanwhile, Kimmel frames himself as a victim of censorship, claiming powerful forces are trying to silence him, even as he continues to enjoy a primetime platform on ABC. For critics, this is hypocrisy in action. Barr apologized and was cast out, while Kimmel refuses to apologize and thrives. The symbolism deepens when you remember some of his more controversial bits, like his mob boss parody of a government official, which critics called a mafia-style joke at a time of national tension. In that context, the lack of consequences stands out even more. All of this feeds into a bigger debate about selective forgiveness in Hollywood. Who gets a second chance, and who is erased after a single mistake? Barr's case continues to be a flashpoint for those who believe there is not just a political, but also a gendered double standard at play. The contrast between Jimmy Kimmel and Roseanne Barr could not be clearer. Kimmel has faced minimal consequences. No one is demanding that his YouTube channel be shut down, that he lose his social media accounts, or that his finances be impacted. He remains on air, still widely followed and monetized. Some suggest that Disney could even place him on Hulu, though that might create a streaming expense rather than generate profit. The point is that his platform has remained largely intact despite controversy. By contrast, Roseanne's situation was far harsher. She made a joke without realizing Valerie Jarrett's ethnicity, immediately issued a full apology, and yet was completely removed from ABC. Her show was effectively canceled for her. Her career in mainstream Hollywood was halted, and she was barred from working there again. The disparity is striking and underscores a deep hypocrisy in how entertainment companies enforce accountability. Looking at the bigger picture, the response of mainstream America, and by extension the market, is going to be telling. Disney now holds immense cultural and financial influence, and how investors, consumers, and the general public react to these perceived double standards could have tangible consequences. The company's stock valuation, some argue, may already be inflated relative to its real growth potential. Disney has faced streaming struggles, trailing behind competitors, and consolidation in the media industry, such as potential mergers with Warner Brothers and others, could further impact its standing. Analysts have even suggested reevaluating Disney's broadcasting strategy, moving away from traditional platforms towards streaming, though the current financial incentives remain unclear. For investors, the combination of controversies, market competition, and strategic uncertainty makes Disney a complicated proposition. While the company continues to hold cultural sway, its long-term profitability and the public's tolerance for its decisions, especially in situations like Barr versus Kimmel, remain open questions. The coming years the contrast between Jimmy Kimmel and Roseanne Barr could not be clearer. Kimmel has faced minimal consequences. No one is demanding that his YouTube channel be shut down, that he lose his social media accounts, or that his finances be impacted. He remains on air, still widely followed and monetized. Some suggest that Disney could even place him on Hulu, though that might create a streaming expense rather than generate profit. The point is that his platform has remained largely intact despite controversy. By contrast, Roseanne's situation was far harsher. She made a joke without realizing Valerie Jarrett's ethnicity, immediately issued a full apology, and yet was completely removed from ABC. Her show was effectively canceled for her. Her career in mainstream Hollywood was halted, and she was barred from working there again. The disparity is striking and underscores a deep hypocrisy in how entertainment companies enforce accountability. Looking at the bigger picture, the response of mainstream America, and by extension, the market, is going to be telling. Disney today is not merely an entertainment conglomerate. It is a cultural powerhouse with a reach that spans generations, demographics, and global markets. Its influence stretches far beyond movies and television. It shapes public discourse, sets trends in family entertainment, and acts as a gatekeeper for talent across the media landscape. With such vast sway, how the company handles controversies, double standards, and public perception carries profound implications. The Roseanne Barr and Jimmy Kimmel cases illustrate a striking asymmetry in consequences that raises questions about fairness, corporate bias, and the role of politics and gender in decision-making. On one hand, Jimmy Kimmel, despite his high-profile missteps, has been largely forgiven and even celebrated by the same corporation that enforced a strict, career-altering response toward Barr. Kimmel remains a household name, fully operational on ABC's platform, and continues to enjoy financial and cultural benefits. His missteps, often framed as edgy commentary or satirical takes on public figures, are treated with leniency. While some critics have called his segments offensive or in poor taste, there has been no movement to strip him of income, cancel his shows, or erase his career trajectory. Disney has effectively insulated him from the full repercussions that comparable behavior would entail for others, particularly women or conservative voices in Hollywood. Barr's experience, by contrast, was immediate and severe. Following a single, racially insensitive joke directed at former White House advisor Valerie Jarrett, she issued an immediate and full apology, acknowledging the error and expressing sincere contrition. Yet rather than an opportunity for redemption, ABC responded with permanent removal. Her rebooted sitcom was essentially canceled for her. Her career in mainstream Hollywood ground to a halt, and her professional influence was erased. Even those associated with her show, from supporting cast to crew members, continued in her absence, highlighting the stark divide in how accountability is administered. It was not a matter of corporate prudence or reputation management. It appeared to be a decisive, uncompromising response to a woman's mistake, with lasting consequences. This disparity invites scrutiny on multiple fronts. Critics and observers point to a possible intersection of gender and ideology in the enforcement of corporate discipline. Both Roseanne Barr and Gina Carano, another high-profile conservative woman, have cited sexism in their treatment. In Carano's case, allegations of gender bias were central to her legal claims, suggesting that outspoken women, particularly those with conservative viewpoints, face harsher scrutiny than their male counterparts. Barr's situation echoes this pattern, raising the question of whether Disney, under Bob Iger's leadership, exercises selective tolerance, forgiving prominent men for missteps while penalizing women in a manner that seems disproportionate. The financial dimension cannot be ignored. Disney is a publicly traded company, and its actions carry consequences for investors and market valuation. Some analysts argue that Disney's stock is overvalued relative to its underlying growth potential. Streaming, once the company's crown jewel, has faced significant challenges, with subscriber growth slower than anticipated and competition from Netflix, Amazon Prime, and emerging international platforms intensifying. Consolidation in the media landscape, potential mergers with Warner Brothers, Paramount, or others, could further complicate Disney's market position, affecting both content distribution and bargaining power. Critics have suggested that ABC and other broadcasting arms might be losing relevance in the digital age. And there is a growing debate over whether Disney should pivot more aggressively towards streaming while divesting from legacy platforms. Yet, as of now, these moves carry uncertainty, both financially and strategically, making investor confidence sensitive to corporate controversies and public backlash. The public relations and cultural consequences of Disney's handling of Barr versus Kimmel are equally significant. In an era of increasing scrutiny over corporate values, social justice, and ideological bias, companies are often held accountable not only by regulators or shareholders, but also by audiences and social media activists. The apparent double standard in these cases risks eroding trust in Disney as a fair and consistent institution. Consumers are not passive participants. They vote with their viewership, subscriptions, and purchasing power. If the perception persists that Disney enforces policies selectively, favors certain ideologies, or marginalizes women, the company could face reputational damage that translates into real, financial consequences over time. The Bar versus Kimmel. Contrast also highlights broader trends in Hollywood and corporate America regarding accountability and forgiveness. Traditionally, networks and studios operated in a culture where reputation was carefully managed behind closed doors, with public punishments reserved for only the most egregious cases. Today, social media amplifies every controversy, forcing companies to act swiftly and publicly. However, speed and visibility do not always equate to fairness. A male figure with cultural cachet and a loyal audience may be shielded, while a woman, particularly one whose politics diverge from the corporate majority, can be punished in a way that permanently limits opportunity. This raises questions about consistency, corporate ethics, and the evolving balance between image management and justice in entertainment. Looking forward, Disney's trajectory will depend in part on how it reconciles these competing pressures. Investors will weigh the company's creative output, profitability, and market positioning against public perception and controversy. Audiences will continue to demand accountability and fairness, increasingly evaluating corporations not just for the content they produce, but for the principles they uphold. For Disney, navigating this landscape requires more than creative excellence. It requires a clear, consistent, and equitable approach to corporate discipline. The Bar and Kimmel cases serve as a cautionary tale for both media companies and cultural observers. They expose vulnerabilities in corporate governance, reveal the impact of gender and ideology on accountability, and illustrate the consequences of inconsistent application of rules. If Disney fails to address these perceptions, it risks alienating both talent and audiences, with long-term implications for its brand and market capitalization. Conversely, a transparent, equitable approach could strengthen trust, reinforce the company's cultural authority, and stabilize investor confidence. Ultimately, the coming years will determine whether Disney's handling of such controversies reinforces or undermines its market position. Will the public and investors reward the company for fairness and accountability, or will perceptions of hypocrisy and bias erode trust and profitability? The outcome will be instructive not only for Disney but for the broader entertainment industry, signaling how corporations might balance influence, ideology, and ethical responsibility in an increasingly scrutinized cultural landscape. In short, Disney stands at a crossroads. Its decisions carry weight far beyond Wall Street. The Bar versus Kimmel scenario is emblematic of larger challenges in media ethics, gender dynamics, and ideological bias. How the company navigates these waters could define not only its financial success, but also its cultural legacy in an era where transparency, fairness, and accountability are increasingly non-negotiable. Investors, consumers, and audiences alike will be watching, and their collective response could shape the future of one of the most influential media companies in history.